Robert McMurray. We're going to kick off now in the next minute. But before we do, as I've said, I would be delighted if everyone could please turn off their cameras and mute their microphones. This webinar will be recorded, and we will be sending out a video of the recording to all registered attendees. So you will get the chance to see the presentation afterwards. So just kicking off, as I said, if you could mute your microphones and turn off your cameras, that would be great. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the Graduate School of Healthcare Management, and then I'm going to pass you along to our Academic Director, Professor Robert McMurray. So I'm Amy Graham. I work in the Student Recruitment Department within RCSI at the Graduate School of Healthcare Management. And at the Graduate School of Healthcare Management, we rank in the top 2% of Times Higher Education for the World University Rankings for 2021. We have an alumni of over 3,000 spread across the globe, and we are developing leaders in healthcare for over 200 years. And we're accredited internationally by the National University of Ireland. Here's an example of some of our online resources that we have. We have a reference guide, EndNote bibliographic reference manager, a Grammarly subscription, LinkedIn Learning, our RCSI online library. So we have an abundance of resources available to our students, which you will have access to once you are a student with the Graduate School of Healthcare Management. So as I touched on there earlier, as you can see from our map here, we have a huge footprint when it comes to our alumni spread all across the world, in North America, South America, Europe, the Middle East, and Australia and Asia, over 3,000 alumni. So we're very proud of our alumni to date. And as if you've joined us in previous webinars, you'll have seen some of our alumni giving us their leadership lessons from the front line. But we're delighted today to be joined by Dermot O'Flynn from the Graduate School of Healthcare Management. This is a very special webinar because Dermot will be giving insight into leadership lessons from the front line during the pandemic. So this is very new content. We're delighted to have him. He's an expert in his field, so very excited to get started. But before I hand you over to Dermot, I'm going to turn it over now to our Academic Director, Robert McMurray. We are delighted to have him. So thank you very much, Robert, for joining us.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the RCSI Graduate School of Healthcare Management. I hope you're all well. I hope you have good weather on your side. We do, for a change, and it's most welcome at this point in the year. So I'm the Academic Director of the school, and my role, in conjunction with expert faculty and operational staff, is to deliver the very best in healthcare management insight and learning. We're here to help you access and utilise cutting-edge management theory and practice so that you can transform lives and fashion your own career. And there's no reason those two things can't go hand in hand. Now, the Graduate School of Healthcare Management is part of, as you know, the RCSI University of Medicine and Health Sciences. And as was alluded to, as an institution, we've been shaping and training leaders in health since 1784. Now, where other schools of business and management generalise across a range of sectors, we specialise in understanding and improving management, leadership and the organisation of healthcare specifically. It's what drives us, it's what gives us a passion for learning and education and research, and it is essentially our reason for being. So we aim to give the very best of education and research that we can in that sense. Now, our research is directed at tackling grand challenges and complex problems that cut across disciplinary, organisational, sectoral and national boundaries. Nowhere has that been more clear, the need for kind of broader, complex thinking in relation to difficult problems than sadly we've all had to face in relation to COVID-19. What becomes really clear is that you can have great scientists developing new vaccines, but if you don't have good systems in terms of operations and supply to get your vaccines out to people, your scientific and clinical knowledge is wasted. If you don't have good training mechanisms to ensure that you've got the right staff to administer those vaccines, again, your response is delayed. And then, of course, there are a whole range of ethical and kind of international issues, and we've seen, certainly here in the UK, where I'm often based, a great deal of conflict about who has the right to import or export certain vaccines. So what starts looking off like a fairly simple issue about health and making people better very quickly becomes an issue of management and organisation. It is in many ways inescapable. It's an essential part of healthcare provision, how we manage and organise. And so that calls on us to engage in a range of topics that the school is really good at. Healthcare innovation, quality improvement, patient safety, entrepreneurship, leadership, obviously, collaboration, systems thinking, digital disruption, empowerment. I could go on. You can just see how there's this great kind of range of subjects that we can really get our teeth into and can make a difference to the way we manage and we practice. Now, I mean, I'm fortunate. When you take up a role such as academic director, what you hope and pray for is to be with really good faculty who are experts in their field and in the areas that they teach. And that is what we have here at the graduate school. They in turn are supported by adjuncts and guest speakers with real life experience of leading major healthcare organisations and tackling the challenges that come with complexity and change. So being taught and inspired by those who have and continue to play a leading role in the sector is part of what makes the Graduate School of Management different. I hope it's what adds to the theory and the practice knowledge and gives those who come to learn and develop with us an unrivaled experience. And that's what we're about. We're trying to provide an unrivaled educational experience. Now, whether that's one of our master's courses like Leadership and Innovation or Healthcare Management or Quality and Safety in Healthcare, or our really successful professional diploma in clinical leadership. These are courses, all of them are courses specifically designed for clinicians and managers who are looking to expand their knowledge, advance their organisation and kind of take that next step. Now, I know you will all be very good and experts in what you do. But we all reach different points at which we think we'd like to know something more about an area that we haven't had chance to develop in, or we've always been interested in. And again, those are the opportunities we hope to provide. And we certainly encourage that kind of thirst for new areas. I think that's probably why many of us are in academia. It's a professional nose in us, a desire to learn more, a desire to be challenged by new ideas and concepts. I suppose I should also just point out, we're not just a theoretical school, we also specialise in working with healthcare organisations to deliver executive development and tailored solutions to organisations. Indeed, a group of us were chatting this morning about the possibility of working very closely with the national government as they implement their new reforms of healthcare, which is again really exciting. So here at the Graduate School, we understand the excitement and the challenges of learning, particularly alongside a career. It is challenging when you do it part-time, though also rewarding. So that's why we have a dedicated operations team and module coordinators to guide you through your learning journey. We recognise prior learning, we provide support if you've not studied for a while, and we ensure there's effective feedback that is designed to help you reflect and grow. So as an internationally focused graduate school, we're really excited about the possibilities of shaping healthcare across the globe. And I think what's most exciting is that possibility of working together with people such as yourself on courses, on projects, on development ideas, and as part of a kind of global exchange of learning and ideas and experience. And that's whether it's about looking at theory, or as you're going to talk about today, being on the front line. And I'm absolutely confident you're going to enjoy the session with Dermot today, who co-leads our clinical diploma, has a great deal of experience in terms of working with people on the front line and reforming and changing services, and indeed an impressive network of people and contacts, which means he's been down there on the front line with a range of people. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy, and look forward to meeting you all again at some point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, and thank you to everyone who has joined us today. I'm just going to hand you over to Dermot now. Dermot, are you there?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all 78 of you that have joined us this afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Before I start, could you just type in where you're from in the text box? That'd be great, the chat box. Just get a sense of the countries that are with us today and the counties. That'd be great if you can do that. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to say, Qatar, I've been to Doha on many occasions. I've been to Dublin, worked there as well. Cork, my favourite county. I see Iraq. I haven't worked in Iraq. I have worked in UAE. I have worked in Australia. Yes, Nadia, welcome there. Swords, I know Swords well. Stillorgan, great. So a great international mix of people from across Ireland. Oh, Singapore. Welcome Singapore. Welcome Abu Dhabi, Kildare, Bahrain. I spent 4 years living in Bahrain. My son was born in Bahrain, so that's great. That just gave me a sense. So listen, you're all very, very welcome. As is, I'm Dermot O'Flynn. I'm the program director for the Professional Diploma in Clinical Leadership, and I've spent the last 13 years with the Royal College of Surgeons, running programs, both academic programs and bespoke programs for Ireland, Middle East and Africa. And every time I run a program or talk to a group like this, I always keep on learning along the way. So thank you for telling me where you're all coming from. A great mix of people from across Ireland and across the world as well. And next slide, please.
Sorry, Dermot, just give me 1 second. I'll get those up for you now again.
Next slide, please. That'd be great.
Yeah. Apologies.
And I see somebody else in Bahrain, right? Ethiopia. I've been to Addis Ababa. We run a training program there. So I've run many programs in Africa along the way. Okay, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, here you go now.
Okay, thanks very much. Great. So just on that world map for a second, it was interesting. Somebody asked me how many countries I've actually worked in. Well, actually, it's 28 countries I've actually worked in, and I visited 52. So that brings a whole range of learning experiences that I can share back in our virtual classroom for people like yourselves. So what is the purpose of clinical leadership? Well, we're very engaged in this area on the Professional Diploma in Clinical Leadership. And there's a growing recognition that clinical leadership is really necessary for change at the point of care delivery and to ensure increased clinician and patient engagement in decision making. So it's really important that we've discovered that clinicians need to be engaged in the whole management and leadership in healthcare organizations. And whether they be nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, surgeons, we embrace all of those people who are involved in delivering the service. Amy, next slide, please. So we went out to discuss 4 years ago. We sat down and went out and talked to people in the profession across the services. Well, what's key for a clinical leader? And we looked at best practice both in the UK, in Australia, and across the States and Canada. And the first thing was very, very clear is that we need to understand our service users, understand what safe care actually means to us, to our staff, and to our patients, and what quality improvement means. And I always remember my first lesson in quality improvement came from my mother, who was an anaesthetist, and I was washing up the dishes with her, and she threw back the dish to me and said, "Do it right first time." And that's what quality is all about, is doing it right first time. It's about then managing the people, because without the people, we cannot deliver a quality health service. And managing their performance and making them responsible for their performance is key part of being a good clinical leader. It's about realizing that as an organization, it's a business. A healthcare system is a business and has to have best business practice built into it. And there has to be very clear leadership relationships are key to your success, and emotional intelligence is primary to that. And they need to set things in the strategic context of both the culture of the organizations you're working and the governance. So that brought a lot of detailed information to us as a group of designers of the program to help us design this very innovative online program for professional diploma in clinical leadership. Next slide, please, Amy. So a lot went into that. So what came out of all that discussion was the professional diploma in clinical leadership, which was designed as a global program for not just Ireland, but for across the world as well. Next slide, please. So what does it look like? Well, first of all, it's robust evidence-based. So everything we have involved in the program, whether asynchronous or asynchronous, it's evidence-based. You have expert inputs from over 10 experts who have worked on the front line in leadership positions, and that's very, very important. So it's real people talk about real information, real situations, key to your success. So it's practical. It's about using case studies, because rather than us teaching you, you teach yourselves, is that you use case studies and work in your groups to challenge, understand, and make recommendations. We also find it very important for your psychometric, for yourself, your own psychometrics and questionnaires to help you develop your own profile and see where your strengths are. All of us has strengths, but also we have what we call allowable weaknesses, and when you want to develop those further along the way. And then having a practical toolkit and techniques that you can use day-to-day back at the workplace. And I often think of this program as having a toolbox that you can open up and use tools for different situations you face, whether it be in relation to leading people or discussing performance or managing conflict or looking at communication, etc. But also, it's not just about learning from myself and my colleagues, it's about the peer-to-peer learning. You know, learning from a colleague in Australia, learning from a colleague in Kuwait or Qatar, learning from somebody down in Oman or somebody from Dublin in Ireland or from the UK or Scotland, because we all have this very rich level of experience that we bring to the virtual training centre here, and we share that among ourselves. And that's key to the success of the programme. And when you talk to people about why they've come on the programme, that's one of the key reasons, the chance to actually network and engage with other people. The next slide, please, Amy. So some of the outcomes are just a photograph there on the top right. That's myself and one of my colleagues preparing and developing materials before COVID happened. So long ago, we talk side to side. We're all separate in our own places, which is sad. But it's all about, we've done a lot of development time in the program, but also we keep on reviewing it and update it as required. So peer-to-peer learning is very important. One of the comments back from our previous participants. Access to key influential decision makers, knowing how to access decision makers, knowing why decision makers are so important, that was key to them. It helped me become more innovative, bring about change. And the great thing about the healthcare service is that the only constant healthcare is change. Whether you like it or not, it's constant change. So being ahead of the curve and being innovative really helps. And it reminds me of a story that my father told me. He started off surgery at penicillin in the 1940s in the Second World War, but he retired at keyhole surgery. And I asked that question, how do you actually go from penicillin to keyhole surgery? He said, by constantly asking the question, how can you do it better tomorrow? A little bit better. Can you make those constant improvement changes taking place? And that's the question you've got to ask yourselves on this program, is help yourself make these small improvements along the way to deliver excellence. Somebody else says, it gave me time to reflect on critical challenges. Absolutely, it gives you time to sit back and ask those questions through reflection. What are the critical challenges I face as a leader in my healthcare service? And then what am I going to do about those with my team? I became more aware of my role as a leader and how to develop my teams. Yeah, very important, because leadership is key to success for you in your role, and then how you can develop your teams, because you can't get the work all done on your own. You must use your teams to get the work done and deliver a quality and safe service to your patients. It gave me the opportunity to network and collaborate. And that's key. On module 2 of the program, you collaborate with 5 other colleagues in solving in a very large report and delivering back the key summary points from that in a collaboration. And that's a global collaboration using our infrastructural setup for you so that you can work in virtual teams during that time. I understand the strategy business side of my organization better. Yeah, a lot of people come into the program not knowing much about strategy at all and about the business side, and leave with a much more rounded view of what that means for them and their organization. I know how to negotiate and influence. For all of our life in healthcare, we're constantly negotiating with our staff, with our suppliers, with our patients, and we're constantly influencing. And it's a key skill that we require as leaders. And I suppose the last but not least, I can directly apply my learning immediately. And to me, that's the key. I hear, I forget. I see, I remember. I do, I understand. So having the ability to apply what you've learned from the session back in the workplace, that brings it alive for you. So for me, it's a very alive program that every week you're learning something new during the year, and then you're applying that learning, not just from the academic point of view, but also for the reality point of view of the work you do day to day. Amy, next slide, please. So what does it look like? Well, here's the one pager. People love one pagers. So here's how the clinical leadership program looks like. So we look at the syllabus and we have its 3 modules. It's understanding and managing oneself. And the reason that's there is because you can't manage anybody else until you can start managing yourself first of all. So understanding who you are, what management means, and how you're going to apply that is critical to your success. Once you've got that through that first module, module 2 then is all about leading and managing others in a clinical context. So the whole area then of teams, of culture, of finance, etc., of performance management, recruitment selection, workforce planning, all those key issues you face day to day, week to week in your service will be managed in that particular module. And with that, again, that's where we use the interactive team assignment, where you'll be working virtually to solve a particular problem. And then module 3 then is actually leading change and quality improvement in health service. You know, quality has to constantly improve. If we leave quality slip, we become laggards, we get left behind, things go wrong. And it's about leading those change processes, and you're doing, again, an assignment to cover that. And these 3 modules are covered then by faculty, by subject matter experts, and by synchronous and asynchronous activities. So in the blended learning side of that, then we have 23 hours then of online content for you, and they're broken down into weekly sections. We have 6 online workshops. We have 16 webinars. We might even have a 17th one this time. And we have 3 key assignments to do. And we strongly recommend that everybody does everything, because the more you do it, the more you learn, the more you apply. And then with the assignments, the first assignment is individual. The second assignment is a team assignment, normally a team of 5. And the third assignment is an individual assignment again. And the third assignment is interesting because it's about putting together a proposal, something you want to change or improve in your area of work, and going through the process of making that proposal and getting it approved. And then finally, we also ask, in each module, we get people to write 2 reflections. And reflections are wonderful because it gives you time to step back and really ask your question, what have you actually learned from this particular section of the program? And we ask you then, what are you going to do? How are you going to apply that? And when are you going to apply that by? So some key measures there along the way. And as one of my colleagues says, Siobhan Carter says, it's all very doable as long as you plan out your time accordingly. If you don't already, it's accredited by the National University of Ireland, which is our national university, and then it has 30 ECT credits, and it's awarded at a graduate level, so it's level 9. So professional diploma in clinical leadership. And what I can say to you is that everything on that page is what has to be done. And what's really interesting about the program is the quality of the materials behind that first page for you. Next slide, Amy, please. Just to give you a very quick sample of a typical layout, when you go into a module 2, we start off with understanding organizational culture, moving into working with healthcare teams. We then go on to the whole area of work, clear and critical thinking. We then look at the whole area of the clinical leader as a coach, and then the clinical leader as a trainer, because we have responsibility both to coach and to train our staff as leaders. We set in a reflection for you there. Then a whole piece on workforce planning, which is a global issue for all of us at the moment. I was already this morning just working on the recruitment selection interview skills at lunchtime today with a group currently running. And then managing performance were my pet subjects. And then the whole area of finance, clinical leaders and teams. And people often shirk about finance, but actually finance is key. As a leader, you must understand how the money works and where it goes, how it's used. And again, another reflection, and then your assignment. Sadly, typical of how a module would look, and within those, information is supplied to each week. So we drip feed you at a nice level, not too much, at a nice level. So week by week, you get build up your knowledge, expertise, and skills. Okay, thanks, Amy. Next one, please. So I was asked as part of this session just to share some of my insights. And just to explain this, first of all, before COVID, I had an exercise, a program called Working the Front Line with Healthcare Professionals. And what this allowed me to do was to go out and work with anaesthetists, surgeons, clinical nurse managers, pharmacists, occupational therapists, who else, risk managers, quality managers, hope I'm not forgetting something there, health and safety, etc. And what I want to share with you is some things I learned from that journey and some stories around that during that time. And most things learning are good practical common sense, but often we forget about them because we're so busy running around operating rather than leading. So next slide, please. And I want to start this with a very good quote from Charles Handy, very famous author, has written an awful lot of works on the whole area of culture and leadership. And he also lives in our country, Ireland and Kildare. He says that people need leadership, things need management. It's dangerous to get it the other way around. And that's, keep that in your mind for now and for the future, that people need leadership, things need management. It's dangerous to get the other way around. Be conscious of that. Thank you, Amy. Next slide, please. So some of the things I've learned about clinical leadership during in my day in the life process of my journey is one, the first is purpose. Whether they have been nurses, whether they've been clinical, directors, whether they've been surgeons, it's come across they have a very clear purpose. They're very clear in what they have to do, what they have to achieve, and who's going to achieve it with them. So they're clear about themselves, their purpose, what they have to do, and who's going to do it with them as well. So they have a very clear purpose, and they tell you very clearly what their purpose is. There's no black or white. It's very, very clear for them. But with that purpose came a huge passion. And the passion was that desire and love for what they do in relation to the excitement in their voice, in their body language, their eye contact, and their great interest in not only their patients, but their staff and network friends around the globe. So there's a huge passion, and you just feel it when you sat with them, the energy they had. And again, whether that was an anaesthetist or whether it was a surgeon, whether it was a senior nurse manager, etc. They also talked very clearly that performance, what gets measured, gets done. That it's incumbent that anybody who works in the health service, whether they're the janitor, whether they're the porter, whether the CEO, whether the phlebotomist, whether they be any of those roles, that they must do their job to the best of their ability, to the standards required of that job. And they must take responsibility for the quality and quantity of their work. And when that's not happening, we need to sit down and talk about those and make sure they can improve. And what is happening, we give praise where praise is due. And it reminded me, we had a very interesting visit from the past president of the College of Surgeons of America a couple of years ago. And he said one of the most important things he does at the end of a day in theatre, when they finish the last case, he stops and says, thank you. He says thank you to the team, including the cleaning team, because without them, they wouldn't have a safe room to work in. And he means it, and he says it sincerely at every time. So always be sincere with that. It's about people. It's a people profession. So we need to understand people. We need to understand what people's requirements are, both our junior staff, our peers, our colleagues, our seniors, and about our patients. And understanding that we must treat people as people fairly at every time. I remember another person speaking at another fellowship. He said, you must always remember that the person in the bed is just like you, with feelings and emotions. They could be your mother, your father, your brother and sister, and all must be treated equal at all times. And with that, those leaders I've worked with, that positive state of psychological health, they must be healthy within themselves. They must look after themselves. No matter how bad things are, no matter how good things are, they must take time out for themselves to regenerate. And whether that's just sitting on the wall, looking out to sea, whether it's walking their dog, playing a game of soccer, going out to play hockey, knitting, whatever's going to work, that's really, really important, because we need to regenerate ourselves all the time and be safe in ourselves and have that positive state of psychological health. So there were key things. But besides those, some of the other things I've seen over that time, Amy, might give me the next slide, is we have a great habit, particularly in our country, of knocking people. So don't allow others to pour cold water on your leadership dreams. If you have a dream to be the best, if you have a dream to be excellent in your field, if you have a dream to actually take over and run the department with a team of people, do it. Don't hold back, go for it. But make sure it's evidence-based. Make sure you're showing people that you have the knowledge, that you have the skills, that you have the attitude to actually deliver on the stream. As Nelson Mandela once said, vision without reality is purely a dream, but vision with reality can change the world. And again, for you to make a difference, you have to make sure you're supporting yourself with those knowledge, those skills and attitudes to deliver on the stream. So when people say, oh, you can't achieve that, tell them you can. And here's the evidence why you can achieve it. And believe in yourself along the way. So some of the best and smartest people I've seen in healthcare are total believers in themselves. And with that, they share that belief to their teams, and the teams produce an awful lot more together. So they're not solo operators, they share that with their teams. And next slide, please, Amy. Time and time again, I see why people have failed in their jobs is because they don't have clear goals. So when you work alongside, a head of the occupational therapy in a hospital, or you work alongside the assistant director of nursing, and you ask them where are your goals, they'll show you. And they'll be very clear what their goals are, both work-based goals, but also personal goals as well. And some of you may have covered this before, and we talk about them being smart, being realistic, agreed, realistic and timed. And most good people, what they do is they actually write their goals down. Some people have them built into a performance plan, which is really, really helpful, because then you can assess yourself how well you're doing. But it's a bit like me taking off down the runway. If I was back in my days in Bahrain as training manager at Gulf Air and going down the runway but no goal in place, I'd take off the plane, go around in circles and crash. So goals give people a sense of direction, which you can measure yourself against. But make sure it's not just about your work goals, it's about your education goals, it's about your personal and family goals. Even down to simple things like a goal for your holidays. Where am I going? When am I going? How much is it going to cost, etc. But I love when you meet people on the front line who can tell you where they're going and how they're getting there and why they're doing it. And they do that because they've set some very clear goals themselves, which more often than not, they've agreed with whoever their line manager is. And when their personal goals, they've agreed with themselves. Thank you, Amy. Next slide, please. I learned a lesson years ago, pre my healthcare days, where somebody told me it was nice to be nice and treat people fairly always. We have a terrible habit at times of being very fair to certain people and unfair to others. And all that does is build up a huge resistance, and people see through it very, very quickly. So if you're a consultant surgeon and you have your favorite trainees, we see through that very, very quickly. If you're a nurse trainer and you're a favorite trainees, we see through that very, very quickly. It's really, really important that we treat people fairly always. Because if you don't, they'll remember it and they'll come back and haunt you later on at a later stage, particularly as you may come back down the ladder in the later days of your career. So I've always had that in my mind. And I always remember this man, Brendan, said, it's nice to be nice. And he's absolutely right. It costs you nothing to be nice to people. And going into work every day as a leader with that upfront, feeling good about yourself and treating people fairly always is key. Next slide, please, Amy. Richard Branson says something very interesting here. The man from Virgin Atlantic, he says that mistakes are inevitable, but repetition is not. And Michael Jordan, the very famous basketball player, says, I failed over and over, and that is why I succeed. And we know in healthcare that we make mistakes. We know in surgery that there's up to 10% global figure of errors made in surgery. We have figures for pharmacy, for all the other skills along the way. But the key here is that if you make a mistake, that you learn from it and you share it. I came from the aviation industry as training manager many, many years ago. And every mistake that took place, whether it be in our airline or somebody else's airline, we shared the mistakes because we learned from each other to get rid of them, to sort them out so they don't happen again. Because unfortunately, every time we made a mistake, it could be people's lives at risk. And the exact same thing in healthcare. If we make mistakes, there are people's lives at risks. So talk about them, learn from them, and eradicate them where at all possible. And make it normal practice to get used to talking about the errors and not covering them up. The people who I've talked to on the front line who've experienced the cover-up, the knock-on effect is that people suffer quite badly. Patients suffer because of the cover-up, the mistake happens again, and individuals suffer again. And there shouldn't be a mob mentality trying to hang people for mistakes. It should be a learning mentality, and that's critical. So you as leaders in your own field is recognizing mistakes are inevitable. So let's make sure that we try to reduce them and learn from them along the way. None of us are perfect. We'd all love to be, but we're not. Next slide, please, Amy. Next slide, Amy. Now, the thing about gratitude, it's interesting, the positive psychology movement has got very strong in the last 5 years, but there was a man called Brian Tracy, a management guru back in the 60s and 70s, talked about this. He says, develop an attitude of gratitude and give thanks for everything that happens to you. And that's really important because it's about this positivity in yourself and recognizing what went well today. And again, on the front line, I've met some really interesting people who actually do keep a gratitude diary, who do take time out at the end of the day or first thing in the morning and say what they're thankful for. And what that reminds them then of all the good things they're actually doing and reminds them how they work with other people, and they can share that enthusiasm. So for those of you who already do this, well done. If you keep a gratitude diary. If you don't, I would strongly encourage you to do that, because it'll just remind you about all the good things you actually do. And start looking at the good stuff rather than all the negative stuff. Because we do have an ability at times to always just focus on the bad stuff, when actually there's lots of good things happening. So again, develop that attitude of gratitude, give thanks for everything that happens to you. And I find it very helpful, and something I practice myself, and I find it a very helpful thing to do, is just sit down and 3 or 4 things you're thankful for today that you give gratitude for can be very helpful to you. And it creates a positivity for you as well. Because as leaders in healthcare, you need to be seen as positive beacons of positivity. You know, whether you're in the nursing faculty, whether you're in surgery, anesthesia, whether you're physicians, whether you're hospital managers, whether you're phlebotomists, technicians, lab, you need those beacons, people who are positive, saying, yes, we can. So it goes back to that old phrase by Obama's, yes, we can. And yet we have the skills, the knowledge to actually get things done together. And that's very key. Next slide, please. This is the one that people are often a bit frightened by, particularly clinicians. However, cash is the oxygen of the healthcare organization. If you don't have money, you can't supply a service to your patients. If you don't understand how the money is used, you can't get involved in the process. So the good people I've met have been very good at getting close to their CFOs, their chief financial officers, or their accountants within the healthcare service they work. And they sit down and have coffee and discuss, explain to me how this works. Explain to me when we get X millions of dinars or dirhams or dollars or pounds, how is that used? How do I know it's being used in the best way? And understand the costs of things. And one of the things we do, a very interesting exercise on the professional diplomas, we get practical costings done with you on typical simple services within your healthcare organizations, just to show you. And it kind of frightens people at times what the real costs are. So I very, very much encourage you, if you don't already do this, find out what the budget is for your department, find out how it's actually put together, find out how it's being spent, and how do you know it's actually on top of it? Is you ahead or behind at the moment? But lots of people seem to put their head in the sand like the ostrich and forget about the money. It's really important to understand how the money is used correctly, how the budget. So we spend some time on that. And that's been a weakness in my journey. When you ask people, well, what's that costing you? They say, I don't know. But I said, if you're doing X number of those operations per week and using X number of those pieces of equipment, surely you should know. Because then you can realize, are you making the best use of the equipment you have? And the other question I ask is, quite often they often go for the lowest price when buying in supplies. However, the lowest price may mean poor quality equipment and you use more. So again, always do that sort of cost benefit analysis on, are you using the right product at the right time and getting the best return from it along the way. Next slide, please, Amy. A classic, and it goes all the time, is that failing to plan, you're planning your own failure. And it's really interesting when you sit and watch. I spent a day with a surgeon, a cardiothoracic surgeon. We start our shift at 7 o'clock in the morning. And our shift finished at 9 o'clock that evening. And the plan was, supposedly on the Friday, to do 4 operations. In the end, there wasn't enough in-depth planning done, and unfortunately only 3 operations took place. One was much more complex than had been imagined because of being poor planning gone into it, poor prep work on the patient's history beforehand. So that meant actually that one patient didn't get seen until was sent home that day, very, very frustrated. And one case went on for over 7 hours in theatre. And we left very, very tired. Well, particularly the surgeon, I wasn't operating myself, I was just watching. Left very, very tired, plus you had the extra overtime and costs involved, and that's already gone much longer than expected. So planning becomes key. So planning, whether it be for your workforce, whether it be for your supplies, whether it be for your patient service journeys, planning is key. And so often we see the plan is not done correctly, or if it is done, it's then not executed correctly. So making sure that we have the where, how, and the now become very, very important. So time spent on time spent on planning is seldom ever wasted, said Napoleon, and he's absolutely right. So I mentioned change at the start when I was introducing the PDICL, but you're going to have to learn, if you're not doing this already, you're going to have to learn to lead and to manage change and be an advocate for it. Because the only constant in healthcare today is change. Every day we're seeing new results, new information, new statistics. You go to PubMed this evening, X number of new articles coming out every day on improvements to what we can do for our patients. And unfortunately, as adults, we tend to resist change. And it's very well documented, and we talk about it on the program. But you got to learn to actually manage those resistors and then get the team involved in applying the change. Because the change is not for change's sake. The change we're making are to improve the outputs, i.e. the outputs for our patients, to improve their outcomes at the end of the day. I have always embraced change. I haven't always enjoyed it. I've met many people on the front line who are very resistant to change. But when you explain to them, well, what happens if you carry on this way? They suddenly realize, we'll stagnate and won't improve. And that's it. So healthcare systems should be always about continuous improvement. So looking at better, faster, quicker ways to actually treat our patients in the best way possible along the way. Next slide, please. Amy, next slide, please.
Are you seeing those, Dermot? Sorry.
No, it hasn't changed the slide.
Okay.
There we go.
Slide.
Yeah, I think there's just lag.
They're logging back there. So with that, again, on my journey through theatres and through hospitals and through other healthcare units, patient safety. The most important person in the hospital is the patient. So therefore, ensuring that all of us who are involved in that patient's journey ensure they're safe in your area. Whether that be coming in from the car park to the check-in desk, switching desk, whether it be from the nurse coming down to collect the person, or nurse assistant to bring up to the ward, whether it be all the people interacted. And I did an interesting exercise recently, again before COVID, on the number of interactions an average patient has before they go to surgery, if they go in the night before. How many people they actually meet and interact with? And the average was about 23. So each one of those 23 healthcare professionals, whether it be catering staff, whether it be phlebotomists, anaesthetists, radiologists, etc., all had to do their job right and safely at all times. So it's everybody's responsibility to ensure patient safety and take responsibility for it in their area. But also, if they recognize something is not right, then flag it. And the same in quality is making sure that quality, doing it right first time, is also part of our responsibility in all other processes and procedures. And again, the good people I've worked with along the way have been really good at this. And they flag it and they talk about it with their teams. And one of the great things about doing a day in the life is that you get a chance not only to work alongside the person, but also attend the meetings they're attending the day and seeing how people interact and engage with each other and how passionate they are when it comes to talking about patient management. Okay, next slide, please. I think that you often hear this, and it's absolutely true, is get the right people on the bus, making sure that you've got the right people in your team. Now, for many of you, you've inherited people So now you've got some of them will be very good and some maybe not quite so good, is to spend time developing them so they are not just good, but they're excellent in your team. When bringing new people on board is making sure you onboard them correctly, set them up, help them with their performance plans and set them up for success. And so for the period of time that you have a team working with you, really the whole idea is about setting everyone up for success so we can do the job right first time, every time. And we can make sure then that the patient gets the best outcomes from that. However, if you inherit a team that's not yours, then you're going to have to build that over a period of time. That'll happen overnight. You have to work with your communication skills, with your influencing skills, with your performance management skills to get them on board to deliver on the service delivery that you require them to deliver on for your patients. Okay, next slide, please. I'll do it myself. Also, it's very, very important, and I've met several people, including my brother, on this, where they haven't done this right. He's a urologist working very, very hard in the NHS system, and is manage and enjoy your time off, because we all need downtime. We're not machines, we're human beings with feelings and emotions. We all need to take that downtime and plan in, weekly downtime, plan in monthly, and obviously holidays, etc. Because if you don't, all of a sudden, as I talked to somebody this morning, is that they've been working flat out for 6-7 weeks in a row, and they actually haven't taken any time out for themselves. And it's really important to recharge. And again, where that time out for you is actually, reading a book or going for a swim or playing cards, whatever it's going to be, making sure it's your time to switch off. Because once you've lost that time, you can never regain it again. It's gone forever. So it's really important to spend time on that and enjoy that time off. That time off shouldn't be spent worrying about what's going to happen next week or next day. It's time for yourself to do something and get into that habit of doing it on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So I suppose part of the joys of working over the last 13 years in the Institute of Leadership is I've had a chance to work in 28 countries, including 10 in Africa, where we've rolled out a very successful train-the-trainer program for consultant surgeons over 10 countries. But after a very busy day's work, this is Lake Tanganyika in Burundi, sitting by the lake, just switching off and just saying, we've achieved a good day's work and now it's time to switch off for an hour and just enjoy the sunset. And I would say that to all of you in your role as leaders, managers, clinicians today, to remember to take that time for yourself to just to switch off and reflect on what you've achieved and enjoy that experience. And thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we're going to take a few questions if we have any before the end.
If we have any questions, thank you so much, Dermot. We really enjoyed that. Some great insights there from your presentation. So if we have any questions from the attendees, you can pop them in the chat there for us. We'll just give people a minute maybe to do that.
That's fine.
And I will, Miriam Holden, our recruitment advisor for the Graduate School of Healthcare Management, will give us a brief overview of the student recruitment process. So once again, Dermot, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that talk, particularly when you mentioned the gratitude diary. I'm a big fan of that myself. Great tips and advice for leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
During this difficult time in healthcare. Okay, guys, I think we'll move along. Miriam, I might hand over to you if that's okay. Thank you very much, Dermot.
Pleasure. Thank you indeed. Thank you.
So it was great having a little bit of an insight here today with one of our PEs. And
I had a question to ask.
Yeah, we're right.
Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. I wanted to know what are the job prospects of doing a health management program, and which countries would recognize you? Would RCSI give us a job opportunity as a lecturer? Is there anything like that? I just wanted to know.
Sorry, I didn't get your first name there.
I'm Monish. M-O-N-I-S-H.
Monish, hi.
Yeah.
Monish, you might send me your email address, and I will touch base with you after the webinar, and we can let you know about any recruitment opportunities.
Okay, I've communicated with Franco on this.
Okay, great.
Right.
Just Amy, just one more thing on that. It's really interesting that people who've done the professional diploma in clinical leadership, we've seen, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but I would say over half the group on each course move job. About 50% move on to something else. It's seen as, I think it's seen as one of those things, if you want to move into a leadership role, you don't have leadership qualifications, it's a very good way of actually doing that, a very practical way of doing it. However, we can make no promise about jobs either at the same time, but that's just—
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, but if there's any inquiries about recruitment, we will address them after the webinar. Thank you so much for your question. Manish,
thank you, Dermot. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we have one more question for you there, Dermot. 1 second. Can I have? This is a recorded webinar, everyone. So we will be sending out a video of this webinar after today. So you will have an opportunity to look back. So I might just hand you back over to Miriam now.
Yeah, no problem. And you can ask any questions similar to that at the end after as well. I know there's a few hands up. If there's just one more hand up, I think.
Okay, have we got some more questions?
Okay, I'll move on anyway for the moment and we can ask them at the end. So basically, we have some incredible courses here in the Graduate School of Healthcare Management. Robert touched on them before. We have 3 masters and 3 professional diplomas. You may have seen them before, you may have started applications for them, but definitely pop onto our course pages, have a look around. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We do have, for all of our master's programs, we start our master's programs in the next month, so applications will have to be got in as soon as possible, and we'll be starting all our professional diploma courses in October. So if you do have any questions about any of our courses, we're more than happy to ask. We just, as part of the question earlier, it was asked about accreditation. So basically with all of our courses, they're level 9 accredited by the National University of Ireland and RCSI, and that's an international accreditation. Now it'll change internationally what requirements each organisation will be required. So depending on the organisations worldwide, you'll have to go specifically to them, but it is an international accreditation. We just have a question in there. It's just about the recording, yeah. So this webinar is recorded and it'll be sent to all registered individuals, anyone who's registered. So yeah, Mohammed, do you have a question? Your hand up there. If you just want to pop on your mic, if you have a question, just let us know. Just jump in there. But I suppose we have some great webinars. You can check them out on our YouTube channel under the courses webinar section. And we also are here to help. So please just pick up the phone, give us a call, or else you can just pop us an email and we'll have some more of these amazing webinars as well. I think Amy wants to tell you a little bit about some of the scholarships. The closing dates are coming up soon, so we might just pass her on to there. And if you do have any questions, just pop them into the chat.
Great, thank you so much, Miriam and Dermot and Robert. Thank you everyone for today. We've had a great turnout, so really delighted with the engagement from all of you. And before we go, I'm just going to tell you about a very important opportunity for funding for a scholarship, the RCSI Graduate School of Healthcare Management Healthcare Heroes Scholarship. So this is currently open and taking applications for all our master's and professional diploma programs for 2021 and 2022. And the closing date is fast approaching. So August 31st, next Wednesday, is the last day to submit an application. So make sure to get your application in before there. So the aim of this scholarship is really to recognise the impact and commitment that healthcare professionals across the globe are making to serve and improve patient care and safety, alongside supporting the educational ambition of healthcare professionals. So in order to be considered for this scholarship opportunity, you must have been accepted to one of our master's or professional diploma programs. and you'll see them listed there in the slide. And you must also submit a 500-word essay detailing your role and impact on the healthcare. So following this webinar, we will be sending you the recorded version of the webinar, but we will also send you a link to find out more information about the Healthcare Heroes Scholarship. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can email us as well. So I just want to say thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. So delighted to see so many of you from all across the globe joining us for what has been a very special webinar. A special thank you to Dermot for an excellent insight into leadership lessons from the front line. And my special thanks also to Robert and to Miriam.
Great.
Did someone have a question there? Sorry.
I think there was just one.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I'd just like to ask, because I did apply for recently. I uploaded my application, but it wasn't finished. I made a mistake of sending it. I don't have my glasses and I tried to email and call your office, but nobody got back to me. So I'm not sure, because I knew it wasn't finished, because I have yet to finish the 500 words. I barely finished, and then some of the, like, the, what do you call this, the transcripts from 2 other schools that I've finished a course with, I failed to attach.
That's no problem. So if you just drop us an email at leadership@rcsi, we'll get back to you. We're on it at the moment, so we're going through all the applications like every single day. So we'll be able to get back to you, no problem at all. Is that all right?
Should I attach the applications? And
we can actually reopen the application for you. So it's just a matter of a click of a button, and we'll send it back to you, no problem. All right.
I emailed you already, so how would I know if you got it already?
We will reach out to you actually maybe after this and touch base. We'll have a look for your email and we'll reach out to you. I think I have your details here. Can I just take your first name?
It's Rodora, Rodora.
Okay.
Nadorata.
Right. Okay.
I'm interested in something to do with human resource.
Oh yeah, I know the one. Yeah. Perfect. I got you.
Yeah.
Great. We'll reach out to you today or if not tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. That concludes our webinar. Sorry, is there another question there?
Yeah,
there
we
is.
just had one more question, and it actually does come up often. It's the difference between the master's programs and the professional diplomas, and I suppose they are very different. If your intention is to do a master's, we'd always recommend that you go down that route, because with some of the professional diplomas there isn't a direct link onto the master's programs. You'd have to start again. Our master's programs are two-year part-time programs, and they have 5 modules in the first year, and then they have, in some of the cases, they have 2 modules and then their project, and in other cases they have 1 module and then the project. In the professional diplomas, there are 3 modules carried out over 9 months. They're special purpose awards, and there's different structures to them. So the professional diploma and clinical leader has a slightly different structure compared to the professional diploma in human resource and performance management and leading quality and value improvement. So if you do want to know a little bit more about them, please feel free to just email us and we can set up a call. That's no problem at all. All right. I hope that's answered all of your questions, but please feel free to email us and we'll try to get back to you. All right. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, Miriam, Dermot and Robert. And as I mentioned, there will be a recorded version of this webinar will be sent to you shortly. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.